Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome. I hope you're all doing well today. I'm doing pretty good. I just finished watching Melody do her live, her junk journal with us. And she gave us a couple of prompts, and I'm going to be using this corrugated material to make a cluster. Now, before I do that, I want to show you guys how I actually get this material, and I get it off of boxes from Happy Meal, and I remove the top layer, and to do that, I moisten it. So the first thing I actually look for when I want to use it is I take a look at it through the side, so I can see the ridges. So I want to see how big the ridges are, because usually if they're really big, I don't want to use them. I like the smaller ones. So what I do after I cut the box up, and I try to do it without actually bending the box, is I moisten the top layer. And to do that, you can use a spray bottle or a wet rag. In this case, I actually just used my hand. I went over to the sink, I got my hand wet, and then I kind of spread it over the top. I just went like that and spread it. And I waited for a couple minutes, and then I did it again. So I did end up getting the edges of it a little bit too wet, but that's okay because I can deal with a little bit of waste, and I'll be showing you that in just a second. But what you want to make sure is you don't have any like plastic tape or anything left on the packaging, because the water won't seep through. So that right there is me showing how I got it a little bit too wet, and see how it pulls apart from the back. We don't want that. That's not a good thing. So it's damp enough and it has sat for a while, so I'm able to just pull it off. So if you look at it, it's pulling off pretty cleanly. So I like that. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes you might think it's sat enough, but it hasn't, and you might have to get it damp a little bit more. The key thing is to try it out and see it, and if you need more, then just add a little bit more. In this case, it's pretty sticky because the water actually goes through and it moistens the glue. So it gets moistened and basically like becomes a wet glue again. So that is something that you need to be careful of afterwards. You don't want to go ahead and start creating with it right away. You're going to want to let it have a little bit of time to dry. So I was actually pretty surprised at how perfectly this one pulled off. So I will be showing you in just a second what I actually do when it doesn't pull off very well. But first, I'm going to show you guys, see how it's too wet. I'm just going to go ahead and tear these pieces off. And I could cut them off, but I'm going to end up tearing it anyway, so I might as well just do it now. Okay, so this piece right here is a piece that didn't come off as cleanly, and yeah, another huge wet spot. One of the dangers of working with wet hands, but that's okay. So I have this paintbrush right here, and it's a pretty stiff bristle, and everything is still kind of damp, and I'm just gonna go ahead and squish that in there. So I'm just gonna squish it and push those up. This actually works really well too after you've pulled everything off. If you have any like random loose fibers, you can do this also, and it works really nicely to get the little bits off. It probably wouldn't work if the paintbrush was too soft, so you just want to make sure that the bristles are a little bit sturdy. Or again, you know, there's a lot of trial and error that go into doing things like this. But see that little piece right there? this is how I just take it off. Okay, so what I ended up doing is going through my little bits and pieces of laces, and I'm just checking them out to see which one I want to use and what I like the looks of. And I end up going with this little piece here of some antique lace. It's just a little scrap that I had, and I think it works perfectly for this. I used Fabric Fusion, but you can use Fabri-Tac, Fabri-Fix, Beacon 3-in-1. You can use the multimedia glue. Any of those glues will work. So it just so happens that this is the one that I used. And I cut the little bit of excess off. And now I pretty much have my base. So this piece right here, now I just need to embellish it. So once I had my base done, I needed to embellish it. So I pulled out my boxes of little bits and bobs and doodads and buttons and metal bits and brads and all that other good stuff. And I just started going through everything, trying to decide what I liked the looks of. And this week's prompt that she gave to use with it was something old, something new, something borrowed, or something blue, which is why I pulled out that little blue bow. I ended up not going with the blue bow, and I ended up going with these little metal Tim Holtz bits. And I had actually gone through it and dug through the box to see if there were any other of the metal bits that I wanted to use. But ultimately, I ended up using the very first one that I pulled out. And I felt like it still needed a little something extra, so I kept looking for something, and I saw these little butterflies, and I thought they would be perfect, and they were a pretty color blue. So that's what I ended up using. And I tried to decide whether I wanted to use brads to hold it in or just glue it. And what I ended up doing was deciding to sew it on with some of that pretty blue thread that Mel had sent me. And it was great because that blue actually ended up matching the butterfly that I chose to use. So this little box here, I'm showing you guys this box because my son actually gave me that little box. It was from his gum, and I thought it was just so sweet because he saved it for me. And it's not really a big deal, but it's just the idea that a 16-year-old boy was thinking about saving something for his mom because he knew that she would be saving it. So anyways, I thought I would share that with you guys. Okay, so here I am about to sew this on, and I'm going to tell you guys I backed it with a little bit of E6000 just to ensure that it has a little more staying power. But what I like to do with my E6000, and you don't actually see it here, is I usually take like a thumbnail or pinky nail size piece of aluminum foil and put it on the very tip and kind of like fold it down so that when I screw the cap on, the glue isn't seeping out and sealing the cap to the glue, the glue container. So it just makes it easier to open it up. So here I am sewing, and I'm not very good at sewing. I end up fumbling a lot, and really I lack patience. I really do. So I actually end up taping the string out of the way on the back so that I don't get it all knotted up as I'm trying to sew it through. And one of the things that I also did here because Mel sent me this thread, and none of these little bits and pieces that I used for this cluster other than the thread were from her. But the idea is that this junk journal is mainly made out of components that she sent to me. And I was considering her as I was doing this, and she has a fondness for the number 3. 3 has a very special meaning to her. So what I end up doing is looping the thread around the ends of each side 3 times and tying it off. I mean, it's not it's not noticeable. It's not even something that most people would notice if I were to hand it off to them. But that is something that I did, and that's why I did it. All right, guys, I'm almost done. The last thing I need to do is get this butterfly put on here. So I end up putting a little bit of E6000 on the back of the butterfly before I sew it on, and I'm going to be using that same thread. And I might as well have not even put the E6000 on it because I kept moving it around so much as I was sewing. But I think that's okay. You know, I think the E6000 takes a little while to cure anyways. But I go ahead and I grab the thread and I sew it on, and I absolutely love how it turned out. And I didn't actually realize until this point right here that I had actually intended to put the butterfly underneath that metal bar, but at this point I was like, oops, too late. It's okay. And you know, that's the nice thing about junk journaling and making things like this is you can constantly change your mind, and it's okay. You can make mistakes, and it's okay. I think that's one of the things that helps me to enjoy it so much, is that I don't have to feel pressured or feel the angst of what if it doesn't look right? What if I mess it up? You know, you make a mistake, you go ahead, you cover it up, or you redo it, or whatever you feel like doing. Or, hey, you make a mistake and you just leave it because you know what? Maybe you like that mistake better than you liked your original idea. And that has happened to me a few times also, that I've made, whoops, oh, but I really like that. So, anyways, you guys, that was my my cluster, and I don't know if I'm going to add a paper clip to this at this point or not, but I really like how it is, and I think it's really, really cute. I love it. So thank you all for watching, and I hope you guys all have a great day. Bye.